Okay. Oh, jeez. I'm trying to get through here without kicking your legs. Oh, jeez, Liz. Let me check. Sorry. Suppose that'll work. Be more careful. Got a circuit here. This is serves no useful purpose than other than entertainment, I suppose. Quite sure how to go about describing it. Start by taking a couple of measurements. First of all, here's my power supply, which is right now this bench supply, which can certainly meet the needs of what's on this board. Ultimately, this supply will not cover the power. More on that later. But for now, just what's going on right here. I'm gonna connect my DMM here right to the supplies output. Set him to volts. Oh, sure. Pardon me. I make sure. Oh, I guess you can see that. Cool. 58 millivolts, and this is off. Lord knows where that's coming from. Yeah, ain't coming from the meter. Hey, I had the supply on some while ago, so there's probably just a little bit left. Who knows? Anyway, flip him on. His address again went down. In fact, it went minus. What the heck? Oh, interesting. Okay, so I'm going to dial up for this circuit 12.5 volts. Again, more on that later. So why that particular number? Actually, this is nothing here is critical, but for the end application, it matters a little bit, just a little bit. Okay, so 12.5 volts then across power supply. I'm going to now measure. Well, let me back up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and apply power to this circuit. Let's see, this wants positive. These are just tie points, and negative. Now, of course, you're going to see all kind of flashy lights here. Okay, so with that load on it, go ahead and after the fuse, and that's 12.48. Okay, we'll goose it a little bit. Let's get 12.5 volts. Okay, so 12.5 volts into this circuit. What's across this fuse? It's also be pretty small yet. 2 millivolts. Sneeze. Okay. Ignore this is flashing for now. I hope it's not making a bunch of stripes. It might be. Sorry about that. But then, so 12.5 volts. Then what kind of current is this thing drawing as it is right now? 2 milliamps. And open up this, the meter in. Now it's bouncing around a bit. Hope there's no glare. Okay, keep checking. I'm sorry. Yeah, looks like you can see this. Bouncing. I'm going to call that 32 milliamp. at 32 milliamp, and that most of that, almost all of it, that current draw is because of these LEDs that are flashing right now. So we'll do the math later, I think, but 12.5 volts, let's call it 32 milliamp. And maybe make it easier to call it 33. So, get rid of the meter. Need that. And set that aside. And just go back to... Alright, okay. What's going on here? Let's see. Might be able to... I'll have to look at this, but I'm going to prop this up and have another look at the camera. I apologize. Oh boy, that's going to overwhelm. Hey. Yeah, we'll see. You know, it kind of does on the screen I'm looking at here on the camera. We'll carry on. If this is good enough, then that's what we'll roll with. I need a pointer that's not short. There we go. Well, this is what's here. It's actually 4 separate circuits. There's a multivibrator here, these 2 blue-green ones, multivibrator here, these 2 red ones. Those are both independent of one another. They're not in synchronization at all. Completely independent. Another one over here, again, independent of these 2. There's an ANDing circuit in here. More on that later. There are no integrated circuits here. This is nothing but transistors. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 transistors here doing this. Think of that as 2 transistors per multivibrator, oscillator if you want. So there's 2 here driving these 2. 2 here driving these 2, and these 2 driving these 2. This FET down in here, this transistor down here, is it's doing an AND function. Again, get into that later. It's a logic function. It's not, right now it's not responsible for lighting anything. Now these LEDs, by the way, are just in there for demo purposes, and also just indication that everything's doing what it's supposed to do. They're not required for the operation of any of this. What this is for is triggering higher wattage lamps, incandescent lamps. More on that later. And what its whole purpose is, it's kind of stupid and silly, but you know, this is about maybe an hour and a half, 90 minutes or so worth of work to slap this together. Slopper. Solderless breadboard, handy to have around, but it does have its caveats. Anyway, that's where I'm going to leave this for now. This, you know, drawing so little power from this bench supply that it's not even registering on its ammeter over there. But the loads that this is ultimately going to drive is too much for the supply at this voltage. So I have to use what I'm going to end up using is and it's already been tested, is a fixed switch mode DC power supply, 15 volts I think it was rated at 11 amp. Yeah, 15 volt 11 amp. So 160 watt output, and it'll do it too. Ultimately, the circuit that I'm going to, this whole thing's not going to use quite that much, and this power supply I'm going to be using, actually, if you'll pardon my reach, isn't this one, but it's one exactly like it, and it has an adjustment to give you about, from 15 volts it'll give you about plus or minus 3.5 volts. So I can adjust this down to 12.5 volts. The reason for that is because the lamps I'm going to be using, that this is going to be powering ultimately, are automobile lamps. Those, they do pretty good at 15 volts. 13.8 volts is about normal for what you'd expect in a vehicle with a 12 volt system, right? 12 volts will last forever. But with 12.5 volts, they're able to get a lot of brightness out of them. They last a long time. It won't overtax the MOSFETs that are driving them. More on that later. But yeah, that's pretty much what's going to drive the whole thing once I've got it set up for what it's going to do. And what that is, well, yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. Okay. More about this decoration. Probably going to get into some of the more nitty-gritty details about this circuit after time allowing. A bit of a rush right now, it's getting late. Today's October 28, I believe, yeah. 2016. And this is somewhat in preparation for an upcoming sort of holiday, mostly for the kids. Anyhow, what's going on here? All of this is going to run off of this power supply here. Pardon me. It's a switch mode power supply. This is designed to put out 15 volts at 11 amp. So 150, 160, there is a watt output. I've dialed it back. There is an adjustment here. I've dialed it back. So its output is about 12.5 volts, which is certainly appropriate for these lamps here. These are taillight lamps from a vehicle scrapping. Extra points if you can guess throughout all of this what the vehicle was, and I do mean was, because it ain't a vehicle no more. But anyway, these are the taillights. Both harnesses, looms, or lacings, whatever you like, from the rear end taillights. Well, I guess if they're taillights, they'd be in the rear end. These are the backing reverse lamps, some parking lamps, but these are the ones that come on, the white ones that come on in the rear when you're in reverse. These two here, and these two, each one of these has it's two lamps in one envelope. One is the running lights, which are of a low wattage, low power, the red ones that come on when you turn your lights on. And the other filaments in these are higher wattage, and those are the turn signals and also your brakes, brake signals. So there's two lamps in each one of these and one lamp in each one of these. And you have to draw different amounts of current. I've measured them, and it will of course depend on the voltage supply you're using. I'm using 12.5 volts. It's handy, and it will these lamps at that voltage will last a long time. I think these things are rated 12.8 to what is it, 15 volts, and you get something like 1,000 hours out of them that way. But anyway, that aside, I've got the how best to describe this. Common to each one of these filaments is, in other words, one side of each one of these filaments right now is connected to V+, the positive side of the battery, if you like. That means these other leads here, if grounded, will light one filament. So there's 3 for this lace and 3 leads for this lace. Let's grab a clip lead real quick here. And as I said, common to all of these lamps is tied to the V+, the positive side of the battery, which in this case is going to be this power supply. The negative side, the ground, if attached to any one of these, will illuminate filaments. Let's see. Let's go with this one first. Okay, that's probably putting really beautiful stripes on the camera. That's the brake light or turn signal lamp filament, very bright for this lamp. Let's go. There's the running light for this lamp. Notice these are both in the same housing, same, oh, damn it, same, this is with both of them on. So, you know, if you brake, you get the brake light, and you throw on the blinker, something like that. Now during the day, of course, this would be off, and then your blinkers or flashers or brake lights lights that filament. This one draws 2200 milliamps, 2.2 ampere. That's kind of significant. Where this one, the running light, let's see, what is that? That draws about 570 milliamps, 0.57 amp. That'll go a long time. And the backup light, this one here, these would all be in the same housing on the right or the left side of the vehicle. That one, what's that draw? That draws about 1.45 ampere, 1450 milliamp. So just to get a quick idea, I was going to show to measure currents and voltages and everything. We're running it. This whole thing is running on 12.5 volts, and I just told you the current draw of these various filaments. So, why? What's going on here? For this, I'm not going to be using the reverse lamps. So I'm just going to bend those off to the side because we're not needing those. And the reverse lamps, let's see, which one is it on these? Yeah, I forgot that quick. How about we go to actual ground? Okay, that's that one. Don't need that. Oopsie. Stay put. I think it's probably this one. Nope. This one. Yeah. Okay, so fold that lead back. So really, I'm only interested in these two lamps. That's all we're going to be using for this toy. See how to best arrange this to do this, which is supposed to be a very quick and dirty demo of what the intentions are here. Oh, come on, stay. There we go. I think that'll work. So for now, the only thing I'm going to be interested in or the low candle power, the low current, the low wattage sections of these two lamps. Keep in mind these both have two sections in them. I'm only right now only interested in the low power section for reasons which I'll get into very quickly, hopefully. Okay, so there's one. What I'm doing right now is just separating out the wires I'm interested in to light the appropriate filaments. Pardon me the delay, please. Okay, so that's these two. So either one of these, when tied to ground, will light the low power filament of these lamps. Okay, that can be supplied, the current into these low power filaments can be supplied directly from this multivibrator right here. The FETs, the transistors I used in there are, I think they're good, with appropriate heat dissipation. They got a couple of amps or something. These things draw, what did I say, yeah, 500, so a little bit more than a half an amp each. So there are two FETs associated with this multivibrator, which is, they are responsible for this oscillation, along with a few discrete components. Pardon me. So, as it is, these FETs are capable of performing this multivibrator function and at the same time actually providing a fair bit of current from that circuit to drive lamps, which are not the best behaved loads because they're dynamic in the sense that they're like a dead short before their filaments are hot. Nonetheless, I'm going to attach one of these. I'm not even sure which one. Let's see, it'll be this one. Oh, help. Let's make it easy. We'll attach the low power filament in this lamp to this multivibrator, and it will follow the lighting of this. In other words, when this LED comes on, so will this lamp. This may be making stripes. You get the idea. And if I tie this lamp to the other side of the multivibrator, it will keep in time with that one. So that's one lamp loading down one side of this multivibrator circuit. Notice it doesn't change the period of it, the oscillation time. If it does, it's not very noticeable. It probably does measurably change it. But for this purpose, it's, who cares? Doesn't matter. It's interesting that it does stay pretty much a 50% duty cycle. In other words, half on, half off in a given unit of time. Likewise, got the other filament here, and can tie that in to the other side of this multivibrator, and these two lamps will follow what these two LEDs are doing. Pretty simple, huh? So, and ultimately, in this display, that's how this is going to be wired. These two lamps are going to do just what they're doing. The low power side of them will just do that simply at that rate. Now I could change it, change the resistor and make it oscillate more quickly. I'll just put my fingers across one of these resistors. I'd get away with a solo voltage. And my fingers are dry, they're not even wet, but these are 10 million ohm resistors, 10 meg ohm resistors, so it doesn't take, and both of those do determine this period of oscillation. So just even bridging one of them with my fingers lowers its resistance a little bit, and so causes this multivibrator to oscillate at a higher frequency, higher rate. But for our purposes, and to just keep it simple, you know, all these circuits use the same value discrete components. Two 10 megohm resistors, 2.1 microfarad capacitors, ding, bing, bing. Those are the time constants for all three of these oscillators. Because this multivibrator uses higher current FETs, and they have slightly different gate threshold voltages and other things, it oscillates at a slightly lower frequency than do these, which use lower current transistors, FETs. MOSFETs, actually, is what those are. It's kind of cool. I mean, these devices are really small and have no trouble at all. There's no heat, very little dissipation. Obviously, I mean, I've got them plugged into this plastic plug board, and they're not going to overheat that. The current for these, by the way, is not passing through that fuse. That fuse only services the positive rail for these oscillators. The power flowing through these comes through the ground. There shouldn't be any issues with that. If wired correctly, there will not be a dead short. There will always be these ballasts in line with it. So I don't need a fuse on the ground side for this. If I pull that, the whole thing is ground. Everything goes away. Put it back in. So that's the plan for those two filaments, the low power filaments in these bulbs. These other two oscillators are going to be ANDed together, and they will switch on both at the same time. In other words, both of the high powered, high wattage, high candle power filaments in these lamps will be connected in parallel, so that those both come on when energized by the rest of this, which I'll get into momentarily. I have to add some wiring. It's going to involve another transistor here mounted to this heatsink. This heatsink really quite a bit more than is required for this, but I had it was handy, and so that's what I'm using. That's just another MOSFET. Obviously, it's one that can handle more current than these tiny little ones do down here. And so this will power both of the high-powered filaments in both of these lamps in parallel, simultaneously. And those will be triggered by the ANDing, a logical ANDing, I'll explain later given time, of these two oscillators, which are running independently. None of this is synchronized. They're all three separate independent oscillators. This one here is the sole purpose, and it's the only thing it's doing. It's not interconnected in any way with anything up here, is to do what this is doing, which will be a constant. The other thing that'll happen is a bit more interesting, and when coupled with these lamps doing this, I don't know, by my estimation at least, enhances the effect some. So I'm going to pause this. I'm going to, of course, stitch it onto the other segments here and make one big honking video. Hopefully, time allowing. And so, be right back. Okay, got the other circuit patched in for the other filaments in these lamps, and this transistor wired in. This transistor is switching these on and off, depending on the signal coming from the ending of these two, one side at least of these two multivibrators. Right now I've got the gate of this, that is the controlling electrode of this transistor, tied to ground, so it turns both of these off. If I lift this from ground, not much happens. If I tie it to B positive, full brightness. If it gets somewhere in between me just touching this, these MOSFETs are truly amazingly sensitive, and they're quite a bit voltage-driven devices. It's amazing how long a charge will sit on these. I'm gonna just grab a hold of this with my finger, and I'm gonna just lower and raise 1 foot off the floor. I'm on the 2nd floor. This is a wooden floor with carpet on it, but there's enough of a static voltage on this to affect the gates of these transistors. They're truly amazing. So the point is, they're very, very sensitive gates. It takes, the current in here is like nil. It's essentially, you're essentially charging a capacitor. And a lot of intriguing possibilities with something like this, some of which I've exploited. And there's no heat at all from this heat sink doing all that. They're dissipating, that transistor's dissipating reasonable amount of power when it's doing that, somewhere between fully on and fully off. Good bit of dissipation with this. It's almost an electrometer. So anyway, let me just extinguish those. I'm sure those, they're so bright, they're probably putting purple stripes vertically, overloading the CCD in the camera here. So those are going to be controlled by an output. Each one of these multivibrators uses 2 transistors, but there's an extra one here that performs the function of an AND gate. What that's going to do, it's going to take the output from this side of this multivibrator and AND it with this side of this multivibrator. What that does, it is only if both of these LEDs are on, this blue one and this red one, only if both of those are on will these be on. Well, since these two oscillators are not in synchronization, that period's going to change. They're going to be on for 50% of the time, and it's going to decrease down to 0% as these two become in perfect sync, or 180 degrees out of sync, rather. You get the idea. So let's disconnect this from there and put it to the output of the end. That's just going crazy because I'm grabbing this wire here. But you'll see what happens. Let's see, where is that? That's right here. This is the output of the AND function of these two multivibrators, oscillators. You see what it'll do. While it's doing that, see what... Oh, I know that's putting stripes. Oh, of course it is. Yeah. But I think you get the idea. So, along with that happening, will also be the low current filaments going back and forth between one and the other, just like I showed before. Let's see, do I have enough clip leads? I reckon I do. Oh, jeez, I already got clip leads ready to connect. Okay, we'll go ahead and do that. And this is going to tie in this third multivibrator to the low to directly power the two Oh jeez, these things are blinding me. I can't see. And tie these on. There we go. Okay, so you got the two, and then this other flashing comes on. Gives us sort of a complex, well, I don't know, not terribly complex, but sort of a complex light display. I'll let that roll for a moment, just see if you can catch the idea. Vertical stripes notwithstanding. So, you probably get the idea of what's happening here. Disconnect the bright lights, and of course you just get the back and forth ping pong tennis of that multivibrator, lighting the low power ones, and then just add in the weird flashing of the higher current, higher powered filaments in those lamps. And now, what's this for? It's a Halloween decoration. Now, I have the fixtures that these lamps, that this harness and all came from. They kind of look like eyes, and you know this is part of the design of these things these days, with these lozenge shaped vehicles. And oh good lord, they're trying to make the front end of them look like a big smile and some big stupid grin with the headlights as eyes. Love you a long time. So I'm going to clip this and I think install these into the housings, and which might also give another clue as to what vehicle these came from. Yeah, I think we'll do that next. Back in a flash. No pun intended. Okay, so there are the taillights with only the two larger bulbs installed. The reverse lights, they're not connected and installed or anything. Just the two filaments in each one of those are connected, just as shown previously. It's unplugged right now. I think it's going to probably be a little bit bright and may cause some stripage. That's to be it. And plug it in and let it roll for a little bit here so you can see it. Hopefully it kind of see the pattern. Actually, it's you can almost call that random. And don't put this in your car because you'll get pulled over. There's something wrong with your lights, or you're impersonating a police vehicle. Yeah, don't do that. In fact, don't even have in your car something that looks like this because they can get you for that. I've had no trouble with it because I don't do it, but I have read and seen of others that have had grief with that. Just a couple of flashing LEDs, red and blue, it's all it takes to do that. They'll say, oh, you're trying to pull people over. No, it's going to be in the bay window in the front of the house. It's a Halloween decoration. That pagan, I don't even call it a holiday, celebration. I'll indulge a little bit, only because it's funnier that way. But that's what this whole thing was about. It's just to amuse, something I put together real quick. And I had the lamps and I'm just recycling stuff anyhow. So before we get rid of those, have some fun with the kids in the neighborhood. Yeah, these two lamps are going to sit in, as I said, sit in the bay window, spaced apart to look like sort of jack-o'-lantern eyes. We actually get very few kids coming by here seeking treats or tricks. But, you know, we're close enough to the main drag in and out here. It'll be noticed. And I reckon somebody's going to ask a question, what's that? Might even have people, some of our neighbors and friends pulling in to have a closer look, which is cool. That's what that's about. Time allowing, I may tack it onto this, or I may make a part 2 and describe in more detail what the circuit is that's responsible for that. It's remarkably simple and cheap, really, and it involves no integrated circuits, no microprocessor, no computer, nothing. That is, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 transistors total that does that whole thing. 8 transistors, 12 volts, and a handful of discrete components, and nothing special. For now, I think that covers it. See it. Okay, that's what it looks like so far. I'm going to do some modification of it. Let me raise those up a little bit. I don't know. I've got much time. The big day's coming. So anyway, kind of what it does. I'm hoping it'll annoy the crap out of the neighbors. Very likely that it will. Oh, and bye. Oh, that's not going to show. They're really deep red there. Who cares? That works so far. Anyhow, good.